Sight is the sense that dying people tend to lose first. It's a long title. It's a monologue performance that I wrote for Jim Fletcher, who's an American actor. And what the text consists of is a long attempt by the speaker, by the voice in the piece, to describe or define or get to the bottom of, explain everything that it can think of in no particular order. So it's almost like a kind of extremely disorganized, quite personal encyclopedia in which the voice is trying to explain what a chair is and what language is and what a French kiss is and what a donkey is and what time is, and everything in the world that you can think of, the voice is trying to sort of grab hold of and define. Sometimes its explanations are good or reasonable. Other times they seem inaccurate or highly opinionated. So a donkey is described as being an inferior kind of horse, which is possibly true, but maybe a bit unfair on donkeys. And I guess what you're watching is this attempt by a consciousness to grab hold of and use language to kind of grapple with the world out there. And one of the things that you're invited to think about, I suppose, is the limits of language, like how language can't really describe or define or pin down experience, how it fails. And there's a kind of comedy in that failure, and there's also a kind of bathos, a kind of sadness in that failure also. The piece is performed by Jim Fletcher, who's an American actor. He's worked a lot with a director called Richard Maxwell. And when I first saw Richard's work with Jim as a performer, I was really struck by this incredibly blank and kind of still playing style that Richard seemed to have focused on with his actors, and also struck by Jim's amazing kind of stoical and kind of still presence, and he seemed absolutely perfect for this kind of text. So when I was invited to write something for a particular context in Vienna, it seemed really natural, given the text that I wanted to do, to ask Jim to perform it. And there's a very interesting, I think, an apt match between what the text is doing and what Jim does as a performer. I guess what unites them is that the text and Jim's performance both, in a way, leave a lot of space for the audience. The text can't really decide whether it's more important to explain what death is, spends a bit of time on that, but it also spends a bit of time on explaining what Monopoly is or what golf is, and it kind of, as an audience member, you're kind of left with this equivalence, you know, that the piece doesn't decide. And at the same time, Jim's performance tends to be very even-handed and democratic, I suppose. He values all of the sentences and spends time with all of the sentences, which I think both of those things together mean that for an audience member it's a very rich experience, because you're not told, actually. Your space is left for you, and in that space you have room to create and to think and to imagine and to make your own kinds of judgments or discoveries. Yeah, so that's the piece.